Welcome to Sports Science Insight, the channel where we break down new scientific studies and turn research into practical knowledge for training, recovery, and human performance. Today, we are looking at the article Stretch-mediated hypertrophy and strength increases and their impact on dynamic balance performance, a randomized controlled intervention study. This study was published in Scientific Reports in 2026 by Siegel and colleagues. The question is simple but surprising. Can stretching actually build muscle and strength? Most people think of stretching only as a flexibility tool, something you do before or after training. But this study tested a different idea, whether high volume, high intensity stretching could increase quadriceps muscle thickness, knee extension strength, and dynamic balance performance. So today we are not talking about casual stretching. We are talking about stretching as a mechanical stimulus. And if you want more evidence-based breakdowns on exercise physiology, biomechanics, rehabilitation, and performance science, subscribe to Sports Science Insight. Let's break it down. Resistance training is still the gold standard for building muscle, improving strength, and supporting physical function. It loads the muscle from the outside using weights, machines, body weight, or external resistance. But not everyone can train that way. Some people may be injured, some may be immobilized, some may not have access to equipment or supervised training. Others may be in rehabilitation contexts where heavy loading is not yet appropriate. That is why this question matters. Could long duration, high intensity stretching provide another kind of mechanical stimulus? In simple terms, resistance training loads the muscle from the outside. Stretching may load the muscle from the inside through sustained tension at long muscle lengths. This does not mean stretching replaces resistance training. It means stretching may be a possible alternative or complementary stimulus in specific contexts. Stretch-mediated hypertrophy means muscle growth that may occur when a muscle is exposed to long-duration tension in a stretch position. The idea is that the muscle does not need to lift an external weight to experience mechanical tension. If the stretch is long enough and intense enough, the tissue may still receive a signal to adapt. Previous research has looked more at smaller muscles, such as the calf muscles, often using very high stretching volumes. This study is important because it focused on the quadriceps, a larger and functionally important muscle group. The quadriceps matters for walking, standing up, jumping, running, balance, and rehabilitation. So the novelty here is not just stretching. The novelty is testing whether stretching can stimulate measurable changes in a major lower body muscle group. The muscle was not lifting weight, but it was still under sustained mechanical tension. This was a randomized controlled intervention study. The final analysis included 49 recreationally active participants. The participants were divided into two groups. The intervention group completed 12 supervised stretching sessions over 4 to 5 weeks. The control group maintained its usual routine. Before and after the intervention, the researchers measured muscle thickness, maximal isometric strength, and dynamic balance. This design allowed the researchers to compare whether the stretching group changed more than the control group over the same period. It is also important to mention that the stretching sessions were supervised. That matters because this was not a simple home routine performed casually. The protocol was controlled, demanding, and monitored. The stretching protocol used the couch stretch, targeting the hip flexors and quadriceps. Each session lasted 30 minutes total. That means 15 minutes per leg, performed 3 times per week over 4 to 5 weeks. The intensity was high. Participants were instructed to stretch at about 8 out of 10 on a discomfort scale. The researchers also adjusted the stretch when needed to maintain a strong stimulus. So this was not a light warm-up stretch. It was long, intense, and supervised. This point is very important for practical interpretation. If someone does 20 seconds of relaxed stretching after a workout, that is not the same protocol. This study tested stretching almost like a training session. In this context, stretching was not the warm-up. Stretching was the workout. The researchers measured three main areas. First, they measured muscle structure. They used ultrasound to assess muscle thickness in the rectus femoris and vastus lateralis. Second, they measured force production. They tested maximal isometric knee extension strength at two specific knee angles, 70 degrees and 110 degrees. Third, they measured movement control. They used the Y balance test, which includes anterior posteromedial and posterolateral reach directions. This is useful because the study did not only ask, did the muscle get bigger? It also asked, did the muscle get stronger and did that transfer into better dynamic balance? So the study tested structure, force, and movement control. The clearest muscle thickness result appeared in the rectus femoris. The rectus femoris showed significant increases in both proximal and distal regions. That means the muscle responded to the stretching protocol in a regional way. The vastus lateralis, however, showed less consistent results. It only reached significance in one leg. This is important because it shows that the entire quadriceps did not respond equally. The adaptation was specific. The couch stretch likely created more direct tension in the rectus femoris than in the vastus lateralis. So we should not say that stretching grew the whole thigh equally. A more accurate interpretation is this. The study provides preliminary evidence that high-intensity, long-duration stretching can increase muscle thickness in specific regions of the quadriceps, especially the rectus femoris. That is interesting, but it is not the same as saying stretching is equal to weight training. The strength results were also specific. Knee extension strength improved significantly at the 70-degree knee angle, but there were no significant interaction effects at the 110-degree knee angle. So the strength gain did not appear everywhere. It was angle specific. This is a key message for exercise science. Adaptations depend on how and where the muscle is loaded. The balance results were more uncertain. Some Y balance test directions improved more in the stretching group, but the control group also showed improvements in some measures. The researchers also reported correlations between quadriceps strength and Y balance performance, which suggests that strength may play a role in dynamic balance. However, the overall balance transfer was not strong enough to make a firm clinical claim. So the safest interpretation is this. Stretching improved some muscle and strength outcomes, but its direct impact on functional balance remains unclear. This slide is very important. Stretching may be a valid mechanical alternative in some situations, but it is not a direct replacement for resistance training. Resistance training remains the primary method for building global strength, muscle mass, power, and athletic performance. It provides progressive loading, measurable overload, and broader systemic adaptations. High-intensity stretching is different. It may be useful when the goal is to create a localized mechanical stimulus without external weights. That could be relevant for specific rehabilitation or restricted training situations, but the discomfort profile is also different. This is not easy stretching. This protocol involved high localized discomfort, long duration, and supervision. So the practical message is not stop lifting and just stretch. The message is, under the right conditions, intense stretching may create meaningful muscle adaptations, especially when traditional loading is limited. Let's summarize the practical takeaways. First, the dose matters. Casual stretching is unlikely to produce these results. The study used 15 minutes per leg 3 times per week with high discomfort over 4 to 5 weeks. Second, adaptation is specific. The clearest muscle growth appeared in the rectus femoris, not equally across the whole quadriceps. Strength gains were also specific to one testing angle. Third, the clinical application is still preliminary. This study involved young, healthy, recreationally active adults. It did not directly test injured athletes, older adults, or clinical rehabilitation populations. So we should not overstate the rehabilitation message. A better conclusion is that this study opens a door for future research. High-intensity stretching may become useful in contexts where active resistance training is not feasible, but more studies are needed. The final message is this. Stretching may be more powerful than we thought, but only when the dose, intensity, duration, and context are right. If this video helped you see stretching in a new way, subscribe to Sports Science Insight. Here, we analyze new scientific studies and turn them into practical knowledge for athletes, coaches, students, and anyone interested in evidence-based performance. Leave your comment below. Would you ever use intense stretching as a training tool, or do you still see it only as flexibility work? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next breakdown.